Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm not sure when you're going to be watching this, but let me just tell you, I'm excited to show you a couple things today that I think will be very helpful to you. I think you'll enjoy the simplicity of what we're going to look at, and ultimately, in this time of uncertainty, giving you some concrete data to act upon so that you can make good decisions and ultimately bring in some funding right now that is, I'm sure, needed in whatever organization you're coming from. So as you can see from the title here, Finding Your Crisis Donors, we're going to take a look at three basic reports in Bloomerang. Basic in the sense of very easy to build, but very powerful in what they're providing you. And then once we find those people, just briefly talk about what do we do about that? What's our next step depending on which group they're in. So certainly if you're listening to this, watching this today, you're not like this, hopefully. We're not trying to stick our head in the sand. We're not trying to pretend that this isn't happening. But I did want to acknowledge that this is an understandable temptation. Some of you right now may be watching on the fence, or your leadership or your board is on the fence about, do we kind of just wait and see before we act, or do we need to act now? And hopefully what you'll see today is that there is some very low-hanging fruit that Bloomerang can offer up to you so that this head in the sand approach doesn't overtake your organization. I'm sure many of you have seen this, but I thought this does encapsulate a little bit about how nonprofits are supposed to and should be interacting with the current crisis that the whole globe is in right now. So you've probably seen this, like I said, but in Chinese, the crisis characters are composed of one being danger and one being opportunity. And I think in light of this context, was certainly not underestimating the possibility that this COVID-19 has some real danger aspects to it. I think for nonprofits, the real danger is inaction. It's letting it's essentially letting the coronavirus dictate things, as opposed to us using it as an opportunity to engage people who would otherwise might be, I'll donate next year. I'll donate my big gift at the end of the year. I will donate sometime in the future when it seems like a need is presented itself. Well, for all three of those groups, they can converge into now. they can they don't have to wait. There's never been a better time to donate to your nonprofit than right now. And not just a gift, but their best gift, or at least as close to that as we can get. So I really hopefully that this will be encouraging to you, that you'll really be able to use this as an opportunity. So today is not necessarily to convince you to act. Hopefully you're here already ready to act. There have been a lot of resources out there, webinars, blog posts, articles. Bloomerang's put some of them out. I'm sure a quick Google search, you'll find a few dozen more. And there's a lot of great information there. So if you still aren't sure if now is the time to act, I would hit pause on this video and go to Bloomerang's webpage and go to our webinars page or our blog posts and really start to understand a little bit more of the reason why now is a good time to act. But if I can briefly recap kind of all the things out there for you that fundraising consultants are saying, is don't stop fundraising. That's basically the end of the day, what they're saying. And a little more nuance to that, but focus on the highest returns, the right people. So it doesn't mean don't stop fundraising and do exactly what you've been doing, but maybe refocus or reposition where your fundraising efforts are and make sure you focus on the highest returns. And for us today, the highest returns are really going to come from people who have the potential to give us a significant gift, that our time is going to be well spent, because the return on these relationships could be very, very high. All right, so now let's get practical here. What you'll know, hopefully, if I've done my job after today, is you're going to know who your most engaged major donors are. So again, we'll work on a definition of major donor. Some people think major donor is just a dollar amount one time. Sometimes it's what's the cumulative given over a period of time. So we'll kind of help you figure out how to nuance that for yourself, because everybody's going to be a little bit different. But who are the people that have been most financially engaged in my mission and are also engaged overall to where they're ready. They couldn't be more ready. In fact, many of these have already probably reached out to you, or some of them, but many are waiting for you to reach out to them to know, what should I be doing right now? Number two, who are your most engaged donors who aren't yet major donors but should be? And what I mean by that is you have not yet seen their best gift, or maybe anywhere near it. They're really engaged in other ways, but we can help you through our partnership with Donor Search to figure out, hey, these are people that are giving a lot of money in the past to other organizations that you haven't seen much of yet, and now might be the time to get their best gift. Number three, who are our highly engaged constituents that haven't donated? Now, what this means is not that you don't have transactions for them. You very well may have a membership transaction, certainly an event ticket transaction, an auction item purchased. So it doesn't mean that you don't have any transactional history, but they haven't really been philanthropic. They haven't really given just for the sake of giving to our mission, but they're engaged. They've come to events, they've volunteered, they open our emails, they've done other things. And right now, strike while the iron's hot, these are people who it would be a huge mistake to miss this opportunity to engage them in their giving. And these, of course, are people that aren't going to be in the first two groups. So we don't know maybe what their full generosity could be, but we still don't want to leave them untapped into, unconnected with. So we'll take a look at some things there. And then fourth, kind of wrap it all together, what's our next step with each of these groups? And we'll just briefly talk about that, because that's going to be pretty nuanced per organization, but we'll talk about some general concepts there. So that's what I'm hoping you'll take away from today, is just some, that, hey, I can go into my Bloomerang database, get this information out, show my board, engage with it, and act upon it. Okay, let me stop here for 1 second, as I realize there may be a few of you joining us that really don't have a deep understanding of what the engagement level and the generosity score are tracking. Where's the data coming from? These look a little, mysterious. So let me give you some confidence in what we're doing here with these levels, and why it's so worthwhile to base all of your outreach on this one engagement measurement. So let me hop back here to PowerPoint for just a second, because I do want to make sure there is an understanding of, first of all, where's the engagement metric coming from. So these are a few of the 40 plus measurements that the engagement level that our chief scientist, Dr. Adrian Sargent, is measuring with this algorithm. And basically, and it's a lot of it's common sense. It's the fact that if someone gives to you, they're more engaged than someone who doesn't. If someone gives to you every year and increases their giving every year, they're much more engaged than someone that gives sporadically, of course. So you can see here, there's a lot of nuance under giving. To the right, then, we have some non-financial pieces here: events attended, hours volunteered, soft credits, meaning anywhere from they give through donor advised fund, all the way to they helped raise money in your peer-to-peer campaign, or they're a board member that's helped influence several large gifts that have come in. All of that, including little things like they've told you, I want any communication delivered via email. They've gone out of their way to make sure that you know how they want to be communicated with. Those are all included. And then things like, do they open your emails? Do they click on links? Do they visit your website? So the point is, hopefully after seeing this might be a reminder or the first time, but either way, can give you a lot of confidence that when you're choosing engagement as your defining metric for who to reach out to, it's based on really everything they could possibly be doing with you, and then weighting it appropriately, making sure that email opens that happen 2 years ago aren't being counted, of course. So there's a lot of thoughtfulness as well going on. So when you see someone has a very high or very low engagement level, it's taking all these factors into account. So this is exactly who we want to find. It's someone that's hasn't yet given this year, as you can see. They're really engaged with the mission. They've got potential for a lot more. We've seen a little bit of that from this person, but we certainly haven't seen their best gift, and that's what we want to use this opportunity to see if we can to to bring that out of them, not for our sake, but for the sake of what we already know they like and want to be involved in, and that's our mission. And that's why we're, of course, we're doing this. We also want to know what relationships they have, of course. Am I the right person to ask? Do we have a board member that should be asking? So all that to say, this is who we want these reports to find, or at least an example of. And so we'll build some reports to pull out the Lawrences and some other examples here from that point. So let's jump into our first report, and I've got these already pulled up in tabs, but just so I don't lose anybody that might be new, I'm really in this reporting section from here on out, or at least for the most of the part here. So if you need to go in and see where I'm at, that's where you're going to click on. All right. So I'm jumping to kind of our cream of the crop first here. These are people that have shown high generosity to me. And again, this is where we get nuanced versions of what we mean by a major donor, both in maybe a traditional and non-traditional sense of that. So let me walk you through these filters. I know there seems to be a lot of them, but it's really quite simple what we're doing here. So the first thing we're going to do, which is just so great with Bloomerang, is that I can immediately in one field say, I only want to start with my most engaged people. This is a little bit of a fool's errand if I'm looking at this information, but void of engagement, because I might be looking at people that haven't done anything with us in 8 years, or haven't connected with us in any meaningful way in a long time, and all of a sudden out of the blue we're asking them for a lot of money. That's going to be a little weird. So right away I already am knowing I'm getting to the people that are most connected to our mission as of right now. So right there, boom, engagement level, hot or on fire. Now I'm picking the 2 highest ones. You, of course, could flex this down a little bit to the warm group. Nothing wrong with that. Just kind of depends on how wide a net you want to cast. And of course, to do that, I would just click here and there would be my remaining engagement levels that I could pick from. All right, our second criteria that we want to tap into, and this is where things get pretty variable, but we want to include people who have given us, or what I'm doing, I should say, is I'm including people who have given my organization cumulatively over $5,000. So if someone has shown that level of giving, and again, I'm using the word giving broadly, this could have come in from any number of reasons, not just philanthropically, but they have written checks, had their credit card charged over their lifetime with me in excess of $5,000. So that's one of my criteria that I'm using, if they have given over that amount cumulatively. Now, again, in your situation, you might adjust that upwards to 10 or 20,000. You might say it needs to be a little bit lower than that, given what our donors have given in the past. But the point is, you're looking at cumulative giving as one of your major giver, or what we'll call high generosity internal to you. And then I'm also looking at people who have given, I'm sorry, I'm only going to look at individuals. So my last type here is just for simplicity right now, we're not looking at corporations, foundations, we're just looking at individual giving. All right. The second criteria would be people that have given to you for a long time, but maybe that total giving hasn't added up to as much as $5,000 or $10,000. But because of the longevity of their giving, you still consider them to be a major donor, an important donor. Again, someone that they would want to be leaned on during a time like this. So again, I'm leveraging engagement. We're always going to start there. But what this is doing, and this is really just rinse and repeat, even though this looks like a lot of filters, I'm just going back over the last 5 years. And I'm saying, I want to see people who have given each of the last 5 years. They have not missed a year. They give to us like clockwork. You might go back 7 years, 8 years, maybe 3, depending on the age of your organization. But the point is, you want to look at longevity as a measurement of engagement, or sorry, of kind of major donor criteria, not just simply the total. So again, we're looking to get people's best gift, and that's going to be across the board. But certainly we want to look at people who have given us cumulatively a lot of money, no matter what that was in just last year or over the course of time. And then we want to look at people that have given just very faithfully as well. So what that does for us, and of course this is set up in an and or fashion, I'm sorry, in an or fashion. So I want to look at people who either meet the top criteria of a cumulative amount of giving, or I want people that are meeting the criteria based on faithfulness, loyalty, longevity of giving. Now, because this is a constituent-based report in Bloomerang, I'll rejoice that there won't accidentally be any duplicates on here. So each person is only going to be on here once. Now, you would really probably run this by household. So I would probably flip the switch to household. I'm going to keep it constituent for now, but in your environment, you may be well suited to switch to household just to get the most refined results possible. All right. I haven't included any excludes. We'll look at some of that on the other reports, but of course I'd probably come in here, just make sure no one's deceased, no one has communication restrictions that I want to make sure I still abide by, that type of thing. But we'll look at that a little bit later as well. All right, so let's get to the results because this is where it really gets good. So what this is returning for me are the 16 people that match my ad hoc definition of a major donor. And again, in this context, I think we want to think of major donor as who would be upset that I haven't reached out to them, who has financially, through either their dollar total or their longevity, shown me that they want to be tapped into at a time like this. So the columns I brought in here, again, very subjective in some ways, but of course their name. Do we have a phone number on file for them? Because this is the group of any group that I want to call. I want to be right on the phone with them as soon as possible. So I want to get a sense for who do we have and who don't we have a phone number for. I, of course, want to know their generosity score in this context, just so I can better understand what their best gift might be. But I certainly don't need to lean on it wholly, because in this report, we're primarily looking at what they've given to us as an organization. But it's certainly a good reference point to have. I've brought in latest transaction date and amount just to get some context to when they last gave and at what level. And then finally, what's their lifetime raised been? So these are all hopefully things that will help you now both position what they're, how should I contact them? What's their best gift potential look like? And what should my, ultimately, what should my ask be of this person? Because these are going to be ideally personal ask done either over certainly over the phone, maybe a Zoom chat, not at a coffee shop at the moment, but certainly connecting with them in a meaningful way to, again, attempt to get their best gift during this time. All right, so that's group one, highly engaged people, highly generous to you. And of course, this is the cream of the crop. So if you only do one of these, obviously I would do this one for the most return on the investment of your time. Now, I'm going to mention later, one of your action steps can be to report back to the board what the potential is. And so this is where you could get some of that. What's their latest transaction? Well, the latest transaction of all these combined is almost 55,000 with a total lifetime giving of 270,000. So that could give you some idea of what you could expect from this group. Maybe a better one, now that I'm talking about this, might be their largest transaction. So just to simply show you how to add additional columns here, I would add column. I would search on largest transaction amount and bring that into the mix here. And I can see here that if I were to even replicate just their largest transaction that they've already given us, that would be an additional $100,000 in 16 phone calls in my fake database, albeit. But I think your data will surprise you as well, that the right number of phone calls or the right people at the right time can really have an amazing return on that investment of time. All right, so we'll take a breath here. Engaged, high generosity, internal. This is our first report. I'll mention this again. I'm kind of training as we go here, but if you're not super familiar with Bloomerang, I'm probably moving a little fast. So don't hesitate during this call, if you're listening to this during business hours, to come in here and chat up our support team. They'll be aware of this video as well, so they'll know what you're talking about. I just want to make sure that you can really execute these in your own context. So if I'm moving too quickly, jump into them and they'll be able to help you as well. All right, let's move to our next group. So these are people that, again, engaged. This is the only group we're looking at this time is engaged people, because that's the people we want to most ensure that we're connecting with. So these are engaged people. These are people where we're going to really lean on that generosity score outside of the organization. So that the donor search rating, here's how generous they've been outside of us. We really want to know that, because these are people that have not shown us much generosity, either in longevity or in accumulation of giving. But that doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that our relationship hasn't maybe developed yet before this crisis hit. So again, a lot of engagement. I'm still tapping into the individual group here in my second filter. I am tapping into just the two highest generosity scores. So people, a quick definition here. So on fire is people that have given at least a $5,000 gift elsewhere. Hot is people that have given at least a $1,000 gift elsewhere, or show the wealth capacity to give a large gift as well. So I'm tapping into those two highest groups. I'm also looking, in my case, to just people that have phone numbers. But again, you could look at that as, I want to look at people that we have any communication with. I want to make sure, because again, this is going to be a pretty personal touch as well. So you want to make sure you got at least a phone number or an email address, something that doesn't require necessarily the time for a mailing to go out. Also, although you certainly could, but ideally, the more personal the touch, the better. So pretty simple here. This one's very easy. And then the big one that we need to make sure we include in here, else this report's going to include a lot of wrong information on it, is we're going to take out the people who already appear on the other report. Because certainly a lot of other people on the other report were highly engaged and highly generous. So we want to make sure we get rid of those people. So I'm excluding an entire report. In case you haven't used this before, what this does is it allows me to say, exclude any constituents that already appear on this other report. And the report, of course, that I'm referencing is the engaged high generosity internal that we just looked at. So if I tweak the parameters on that report, if I refine what I consider to be a major donor in my context, it'll automatically update this report, which is really awesome, and just will save you a lot of time of scrubbing lists. So once I exclude the people who I'm already connecting with as highly engaged, highly generous internal, I'm left with 6 people who at the moment are really engaged. They are giving to me, most likely, or they could be giving to me, I should say. They necessarily aren't. But they have not nearly reached their full potential yet. So this allows me then to cultivate this group here, because these are all people that probably can give at least a couple thousand, 5,000, maybe a lot more, but I need to dig into further. So that's again where we find Lawrence, our buddy from the very beginning. Lawrence is someone who should show up on this list because he is engaged. He has started his giving habit with me, but it hasn't reached its full maturity yet. And as such, is certainly someone I should be connecting with in a very personal way, knowing full well that his ability to give extends well beyond what he's currently giving us of $50. So if I come, so let's dig into this a little bit further, and again, in case this is new to you. So let's say I come over here to Jerry and Lois's report or record. So they've given us $2,200, but it didn't meet the criteria from our engaged donors. So we want to look to see kind of what the potential is. So I'm going to control click here, and that will open up a new tab for me. So I don't have to leave my report entirely. And this is a great example of someone that might fly under your radar, have it not be for Bloomerang's ability to help you be tracking their engagement and generosity. So if I were to then go in, click on their generosity, or sorry, their donor search report based on their generosity score, it would show me that of course I haven't gotten their best gift yet. They have given six-figure gifts in the past, and I've got this budding relationship with them. They're very engaged in my mission, and I've really only gotten a tiny fraction of their best gift potential. So this is what we want to help you uncover. These are the key relationships. Again, you don't need to find 200 of these to make a difference. If you find 4 or 5 Jerry and Lois's in your database, you're gonna love it. It's going to be a huge difference for you in any season, but particularly in this season. And we'll talk about what we would do next here in a bit, but ultimately, I would pick up the phone and start dialing and understanding if this is of a relationship that we can keep moving forward here. All right, so this is the goal here, is basically to make sure that you're in a position to know who is really for me right now that has the potential based on their past giving to me, or based on their past giving outside of me as an organization, that I should be connecting with right now. That I could send this to my board to say, hey, call these numbers, there will be fruit on the end of this vine. This is an important activity for the whole organization to get involved in, not just simply maybe you as the development director, but the whole organization. All right, let's go to our final group here. Let's make sure I remember how we define them. Yes, so these are the highly engaged constituents that haven't donated. And again, as we get into this report, you'll see here that what I mean by haven't donated isn't that they don't have transactions. So let's look at how we do that. So of course, we're going to start with engagement. Now I am widening the net a little bit more here, because this group is not a group we're probably going to reach out to individually. This group's end result is most likely going to be an email or maybe direct mail communication. But either way, we can widen the net here a little bit. We're looking for really any signs of life amongst this group. So we're going to go warm, hot, or on fire as it relates to the engagement. Now, this is where it gets more nuanced, and this is going to be very specific to you as an organization, so don't get too wrapped up in my examples. But basically, you're going to define for yourself what you consider to be a philanthropic gift as opposed to more of just a transaction. So that might exclude events. It might exclude membership, in-kind gifts, of course. It might exclude any number of things where their giving is maybe have a mutual benefit to it, and isn't maybe to your annual fund, something like that. So it might be easier for you to exclude certain funds. It might be easier to include certain funds. But either way, you want to get to the people who have not, they're really engaged. They've shown a lot of other signs of engagement. They just haven't really crossed over that I'm giving you this solely for the purpose of advancing your mission. So again, reach out to our support team if you need more help with defining that for your organization. But once you define that, and then done some kind of practical excludes, like I don't want to include people who have told me don't call, don't email, don't solicit, something like that. I want to exclude people who are inactive or passed away, of course. So just some basic communication guidelines there. But once I've built that, again, what I love about these reports is these are not complex filters so far. They wouldn't have asked me to do it if it was complex. I love that it's this simple for you to get to this powerful of data. So anyway, so 4 filters, and we now have, in my case, the 15 constituents who have a lot of engagement, but not yet have any philanthropy. And because of that engagement, I don't want them to go untapped during this time, because this is probably precisely the kind of event they were waiting for. Not probably of the scale, of course, but they were waiting to give. But they love what you do. They already know what you do. They just haven't crossed that threshold. So this report, again, is going to be different depending on your situation. But in my context, as I build out my columns here, I want to get some sense of what that engagement has. If it hasn't been philanthropic giving engagement based, what has it been based on? So I'm looking at things like event attendance. How many times have they attended an event? How many times have they volunteered? How many emails have they opened? Those can all help me know maybe what the right medium is or context for the ask would be. And then how many times have we personally reached out? This is a pretty fun column to put in a lot of your reports, but you can specify the count. You can have Bloomerang count the number of times that you've sent them a personal email, you've had an in-person interaction with them that wasn't a special event or volunteer activity. Maybe those people you've had a phone call with, or you can even include like things like text message if you're tracking those. So all that to say, you have the ability to really understand, have we reached out much with this person? So I can get a sense for, is there someone else? If I came in here and saw there was 62 personal touches with someone, I'd first want to figure out, well, who's making those personal touches, because obviously that should be who's reaching out to this person. If we had 0 personal contact with them, then it's a different story. So this can, again, give you some basic context to this. So that's another example here, our third example of, again, tapping into engagement, but in a different way. And again, this whole time I'm trying to make sure I'm connecting with people in the way that makes sense, at the same time trying to get their best gift. So in this case, because I don't know a lot about these people, they don't have much evidence in donor search that they're got a high gift potential. We don't have any evidence from them personally as an organization that have got high gift potential, but we certainly know they are for our mission at some level. And so this might be a great group to ask to become monthly donors. Hey, this crisis doesn't seem like it's going to go away tomorrow. We'd love for you to engage in our mission with a $40 a month gift. That would be a huge win for this group during this season, or any season that you convert them to a mid-level or even low-level monthly donor, because you'll get great retention on that. And these are the kind of people that you can come back to at some point and maybe lean on for a bigger gift down the road. All right, so our fourth thing here is how to effectively engage in each group. This is a group of, or these are 3 examples where really the first 2 I think are pretty obvious. If you've got someone's phone number and they've shown up on the first 2 reports either as being, have some sort of major gift potential, we should be calling them. We should be doing something very specific with them, maybe a personal note, but either way, it should probably not be a mass type of communication with this group. The final group, though, it probably is going to be pretty large. Now, if it isn't, it might make as much sense to reach out to them personally as well. But if you've got a pretty substantial number of people, especially if you've got their email addresses, then it might be setting up some sort of email or direct mail campaign. So I want to briefly just touch on how to leverage going from a report that you've built in Bloomerang into an email, especially if you haven't done that yet, how you would go about doing that. So we're going to pop over here to the Bloomerang email tool. And again, if you're unfamiliar with this, this is, if you follow me over here on the left-hand icon bar here, you'll notice the email tool. And this is what you see when you click on it. And it shows you a variety of um, purpose, time purposed templates, we'll call them, giving an opportunity to say, what am I sending out for? What's my purpose? So in this context, there we go, you might reach out with a simple constituent one. You're using a constituent-based report to build off of, so it would probably make maybe the most sense to use simple constituent. So that's what we'll use in this context. I didn't spend much time on the design. Yours will look better than mine, but basically what I want to make sure you know how to do after this time is, how do I make sure I'm sending to the right people? So once you build out your design, and again, really in this kind of context, the simpler the better. People just want to get to your message quickly. And again, you're already connecting with engaged people here. So you really need to get to the point about why you're contacting them and what they can do to help. But we're going to go over here to the filter side of things. It's kind of our focus today. And this is what's so wonderful about using Bloomerang's email tool, is that all I have to do to make sure I'm sending to the right people is simply to say, send this to people who are in my report called highly engaged but not donating report. So if I make any tweaks to either reports, if I refine my definition of major donor, if I refine my definition of non-philanthropic donations, that's all going to be represented here automatically up to the second that I go to send this report out. Another thing I might add to this, even though this is the right list, I might go ahead and add an exclude to say, you know, if anyone in this group has given in the last 7 days, let's not maybe send them that email here. So I can very easily add a condition here to say, if they have any donations in the last 7 days, then let's go ahead and not include them on this list, just so they know we know that they gave, basically. All right, so this just helps me keep donor trust high and not to kind of misstep with any of these relationships by adding that little piece in there. Then of course, once I'd built my design, including any merge fields, I can preview it, send it away, and start to uncover some opportunity to give people, to give people an opportunity to give and uncover some relational equity that maybe I didn't know I had, certainly. So that's our goal here, ultimately, is to give you some very low-hanging fruit tools that can help you find both the best gift out of your best donors, but also maybe start some relationships in a new giving pattern, and using this as an opportunity, like we talked about before, to ensure that can happen in a timely fashion. All right, so let's recap. We're almost done. Thanks for hanging on here till the end. Um, so if you want to do 4 things today, or I would recommend these 4 things. So run those crisis donor reports. Run all 3 of them, ideally. Add up all the opportunity dollars in those reports. Bloomerang gives you those great easy subtotals there, and you can look at a sense of, okay, so if we get the largest gift again from any of these people, here's what our dollar amount could be. If we get even 30% of these people that are highly engaged, not yet giving, to donate, to become a $40 monthly donor, what would the opportunity revenue be there? So get a sense and build some excitement around the opportunity that your database, your relationships that you already have could provide you. And then thirdly, share those results, both in terms of, hey, here's what we found, but also in terms of, here's what you need to do. Here's who we need to call. Those type of things, and get people kind of refocus maybe during the season a little bit towards some of the potential and opportunity that's out there once Bloomerang has kind of exposed that to you. And then devise that communication plan. Your context is your context. It may not be exactly what I represented here. So understand what each group needs. I showed you 3 groups. You might find you have 5 or 6 different groups. You might find you have 2, but come up with a plan that makes sense for each group, and put yourself in those donors' shoes as a great way to understand what they might need right now. All right, well, thanks again. Appreciate your time, and as my last slide says, connect with our chat team on our support team on chat or phone, and make sure that you're not letting this good idea go undone. Connect with them and make sure all your questions are answered. All right, have a great day.